Hi, this is Joe Shannon. I'm a lawyer, a husband, a father of 6 kids, and I also host a podcast called Opening Statement with Joe Shannon. Please consider listening to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and any other folks that host podcasts. Just Google Joe Shannon and podcast, and you'll find it. I hope you enjoyed the show. We're here today with Suzanne Ettinger. How are you, Suzanne?
I'm well, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm good. So we're here talking April 9th, 2020. A very interesting time to be a law firm owner, isn't it?
It certainly is. That's a good way to put it. We're just kind of muddling through and seeing what we can do to keep everybody's spirits up and our own and make the business continue. Most credit goes to my husband, Michael, who developed the firm 30 years ago. But it's an unusual model. It just seems to work for us. The fact that we are reaching out to people using that website, and the fact that we're across the state, and we have multiple offices, so people don't have to travel far to come see us. It works really well.
So how many offices do you guys have?
We have 15 offices.
Wow. And then so 15 offices, and then you basically the way it's like a machine. I mean, the way that this thing works. I mean, when I first was I had to sit and listen, and then I read Michael's book, Elder Law, and I learned how it works. And to me, it seemed to me, if you're in New York and you are, I don't know, anywhere 40 years old and over, you got a family or you got kids, it seems like it's worth a call to Ettinger Law Firm, just because you're not going to be paying any money unless your whole plan is understood, agreed to, and something that is exactly what you want.
Yeah, exactly. That's really something that, our clients are happy about, and we're happy to do it this way. Honestly, we don't take any money at all until they sign. So, part of it is to make the client happy. But a big part, in my opinion, is if a client doesn't understand what they're getting or what they're signing or what they're, establishing as their estate plan, it's not going to work for them. So by the time people do sign, they're really very well informed. I joke to some of my clients and I say, by the time you sign this thing, you're going to be able to put on the seminar that you met me at, so they're really very, very informed and very comfortable.
So let's back up. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, Suzanne.
Sure.
Where are you from?
So I am from Long Island, New York, and I grew up in Huntington, which is a great town. I'm actually there right now in our Huntington office, which is close to home.
Is that a train stop, Huntington, on the way to Manhattan?
It absolutely is. It's an hour from Manhattan. It's one of the hubs, and really nice suburban community. I grew up with brother and a sister, my parents, and from the time I was really little, like 5th grade, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So this has been a long time coming.
Tell me about your parents. What did they do for a living?
So I am first generation to go to and graduate college. My father worked for the Federal Aviation Administration. He was an engineer there without a college degree, because back then you could do that. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She had some part-time jobs, but, we were a close-knit family. And, they were so proud to have all 3 of their kids go to college and become successful. And it's wonderful, because now our children are, next generation to do so.
And how about your grandparents? Where were they from?
So my mother's parents were both from Italy. They immigrated. My grandfather was, I believe he was around 20-ish, and my grandmother was much younger when she came with her family. And they were business owners themselves. They owned a beauty parlor and in Elmont, New York, which is in Nassau County. And so just like the the guts to come from another country, not speak the language, raise a family, have a business. You know, I often credit them with my courage that I have. And my dad's parents were also immigrants. My grandmother was from Hungary, and my grandfather was from Italy, from Sicily. Same thing. They had a business. They had like a cafe, and you know, just the immigrant mentality. I think that we've kind of lost that a little bit. They were really fearless, and the most important thing was to earn money for their family and to make a name for themselves here in the U.S. And they all did really well.
So your mom's folks, what part of Italy were they from?
My grandmother was from Naples, and my grandfather was from Sicily.
And did they know each other before they came out?
No, they did not. They met here in the U.S.
Oh, you know, so I don't know if you know this, but my wife is 100% Italian.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
So, you know, and I'm 100% Irish, about 100%. I'm sure there's some parts of me that aren't Irish, but I always joke to my wife that, and my mom won't feel bad. My mom, you know, I'm one of 10 kids, and the Irish experience of food growing up is, let's just say that it's not the Italian echelon. Okay. So I remember, I still remember, I can still taste it right now. When I met Michelle, my wife, in law school, I was a third year. She was a first year. She's from Chicago. And guess where we are now? Chicago. And so I was from the West Coast. I had no intention of being in Chicago. And so I ended up meeting my wife in a bowling alley. Neither one of us bowl. And I think that we'd had a few drinks. And so I ran into her. And this is in February. And I think I graduated in May, but it was sometime in March or April. She invited me over to her apartment and to make me dinner. And I said, boy, I don't think I've ever had that. So anyway, so I go over there, and she's made me this unbelievable dinner: twice baked potatoes, steak, and it was like she really understood cooking. She really understood the food, and it wasn't out of a can, and it wasn't boiled. And I was like, I think I kind of like this.
That's so funny. It's so typical too. I mean, I've had people, friends of mine, and you know, friends in college, come to the house for dinner. And I remember one friend of mine in particular, my mother, you know, they would serve the pasta, and then he thought that was it. But then came the chicken and the vegetables, and then the dessert. And so it was like 4 courses. And he was like, oh my gosh, you should have warned me about this because I would have saved room. But yeah, food is really important in the Italian culture. And, you know, I mean, Irish and Italian is a good combination, though, I have to say.
Well, I mean, the kids are beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but I definitely, as far as the food aspect, you know, growing up, I mean, we were just happy to eat. But there was a lot of canned stuff, a lot of boiled stuff, a lot of, you know, ready-made stuff. But I tell you, when I got deeper into the Italian web, you know, my wife's parents are unbelievably good cooks. I mean, they are just, and they care so much about what they eat and where they buy it and all these types of things. Mm-hmm. And I gained big time after I joined this family. And, you know, when you marry an Italian, you marry the family. And I liked it. I remember vividly also the first time I came to visit for Christmas, and my wife said, okay, we're going to go over to my grandparents for Christmas Eve. And I said, wow. That sounds like a really good time. So I figured, you know, we'll just go over there. We'll stay for an hour. We'll say hello. And then we're out of there. Well, so basically it was a snowstorm in Chicago. I get into the car. We're staying with her parents, and her sister and her future husband and I are in the car, and they're driving through the snowstorm, which I'm like, this isn't safe. And they're driving down the expressway, and we get to this this house in this town called Berwyn, which is a near west suburb of Chicago, and there's 30 people there.
Yeah, easily.
Aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody, and like you said, it was like a flight of food. There was the appetizers, which were, I mean, would have been way more than we would have eaten just one or two sittings for meals, and then came the salad, and then came the main course, and then came the desserts, and then there was the coffee and the wines, and I mean, it was like I walked out of there, and I was like, I'm really, really liking this family.
Did they do the traditional fish dinner?
Oh yes.
For
Christmas
Eve?
Yeah, we still do that for Christmas Eve.
That's my favorite.
We do this, Michelle and I host that typically, and Michelle's parents, Tony and Carmela, come over, and they are unbelievable. They have been, barbecuing and roasting, and they do all these unbelievable dishes. It's like, it's so much fun. So that's our typical thing is we will, go to a mass or earlier mass, and then we'll come back, and then everybody's there at the house, and we do this Christmas, this Christmas Eve. My kids don't know any different. They think everybody has Christmas Eve, seafood. And so what a culture. But yeah, so getting back to your family, yeah, you know what? That's why I really love this country as far as the whole immigrant story. And the guts. You're right. To come to a different country where you don't speak the language and you open up your own business, how daunting that must be.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable. I mean, that really took a lot of strength of character. And, we think it's hard for us, but imagine not speaking the language, not knowing the culture, and really being in a way suspicious of other people and really protecting your family. I mean, there's a great story, and I read a book about this, about how I always wondered why my grandparents had their beautiful living room couch covered in plastic, and nobody actually went in there. It was almost like a museum. There was like almost like a rope.
Yeah, I get it.
Right. And the book that I read explained that, immigrant families, they worked really hard for everything they had. And when they were able to buy nice things, they really wanted to protect and preserve them for their family. And I got insight into that into my 30s. But I remember being a kid in the summer, and when I was allowed to go in the room, sitting on the plastic couch and having my legs stick to the couch because it was hot. So, there's a lot of things that my cousins and I still talk about, because it really, I feel fortunate to be brought up in that kind of environment.
So, that really brings us to what your firm's about is, what we pass on, speaking about your both sets of grandparents, both immigrants, and coming over to this country, and, what people nowadays, when they grow a business or, have saved and saved and saved, they have a legacy, don't they?
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about, preserving the legacy. I've been asked, what is a legacy to you? It's literally what you leave when you're gone, to your family, to your people that have known you. And what we do is make sure that people's legacies are preserved and that things go to the next generation that they've worked so hard for. So it really is rewarding to be able to do that for people. So,
tell me what distinguishes your firm from other firms as far as, listen, some people, they before they get on an airplane, they say, oh, I need to drop a will. And then they dash off somewhere and try and do a will. And, what distinguish that kind of thing to what you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've seen some of that under the circumstances. I've had people call me and say, we have to do a will because what if something happens as a result of this pandemic? And because of the changes, I mean, there's been a couple of executive orders that are allowing us to do things more remotely. Remote notarization and remote witnesses now just came to pass this week. But generally, in our practice, it's more a learning process. And we sit with the people, and as Michael and I always say, probably 90% of this type of law is social and 10% legal. And what I mean by that is we sit and we talk to people about their families and about the difficulties they may have, getting along or whatever. It could be a whole plethora of things. I mean, the norm now is not, mom and dad and kids. There are extended families. There are second marriages. So by the time I get to know my clients, I feel like I've almost had a therapy session with them. And a lot of them, are very grateful to be able to get out these points about their families and about what they want to leave behind. So, I mean, that's one thing. It's not cut and dry. It's not come in, sign this document. It's a process. The other thing is we're completely accessible to people even after they sign the documents. I mean, unfortunately, the standard in a lot of cases is, here are your documents, goodbye. But what we do is we develop a relationship with our clients. So, in this area of law, just like in many areas, questions come up and sometimes bad things happen. And our clients are assured that they have somewhere they can go if something happens or if they have a question. So that, in combination with, not asking for fees up front, really puts us apart, and from other firms and from other people, how they deal with things. So I mean, our clients are very happy as a result.
So how do people how do people find out about you? I guess that's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, before all of this happened, we really were in the seminar business. So what I mean by that of the 10 lawyers we have, 7 or 8 of them would do 1 or 2 seminars per week at restaurants. So we put on a dinner seminar. We invite people. We have a direct mail company that solicits people based on their age and their zip code. And at that dinner, first of all, I let people eat first. A lot of times when you go to one of these seminars, the person wants to talk and makes you wait to eat. It's more of a social and informational gathering.
That's the Italian side of you, Suzanne.
Absolutely. I can't let people wait to eat, especially seniors. So at that seminar, we give an overview of what we do, and people then come in for free consultations. But now things are different. And going forward, I really believe things are going to change. I have to tell you that when all this happened and we realized that we're not going to be able to do seminars, at least now and maybe for the foreseeable future, because restaurants are closed. Even when this gets back to normal, I think social distancing is going to be an issue. My 20-year-old son said to me, "Mom, this could be the best thing that ever happened to the firm." And I said to him, "What are you talking about, Luke?" And he said, "As a result of this, you're going to have to find other ways to get the word out there and move into the 21st century by doing social media marketing." We're already doing that, but more of that by doing online seminars, reaching out to people in other ways. And I really think, in a way, this is like a blessing in disguise, because we are making efforts to change the way we get the word out there to people.
Well, you know what? I've interviewed Michael, and I'm interviewing you. And let me just tell you, the more that you do this type of thing, where you're speaking to people, because you're both unbelievably articulate, you will do fine.
Thank you.
And then if you can figure out a way to feed people while you're doing that, maybe you can do some takeout for them.
Yeah, we used to do hotels, where they have the conference rooms and have a buffet lunch. We tried that in the wintertime to do it during the day so that people didn't have to come out at night. And we're considering that, perhaps, because we have to have food. I mean, food, you have to feed your people. You're right. That is the Italian in me. And Michael's Jewish, so it's the same thing. Italian, Jewish.
I love it.
Thing.
Yeah, my first law firm that I worked for in Chicago when I moved here was Siegel, McCambridge, Singer, and Mahoney. So it was Jewish guy, Irish guy, Jewish guy, Irish guy. And so I think I was lucky, because I think it was the Irish guy's turn. And I found out, that Chicago was such a melting pot with different cultures. And, I know New York is the same way, and all of America. That's, to me, the genius of America is that we seem to all get along, whereas other countries, they can't.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're very fortunate that way, because we get to experience other cultures and see how other people do things.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
So, well, you know what, I getting back to that whole thing with the legacy aspect. One of the things I saw, and I did a little bit of research on your firm, is that what folks want to do is they don't only want to leave money to the next generation or to their grandkids or whoever. Basically, the way that you guys put it is, it's sharing your life's work. And that, if you put it that way, all of us work hard. Some of us have our own businesses, some of us have been working for a company forever and ever, and we've worked hard to save money and want our kids to succeed, but we want to put it the right way. And one of the things that I've learned in researching these things is that half of people at some time in their life, and maybe I'm wrong, you're the expert, will become disabled in some way during their lifetime.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because we're living longer, about 50% of us will develop some disability during our lifetime.
What do you guys do? What does your firm do to deal with the disability aspect?
Yeah, well, that's basically the elder law aspect of planning, the disability planning. So disability planning encompasses things like power of attorney, so that if you become disabled, you have someone able to take care of business, legal, financial issues. We also do healthcare proxy and living will for medical decisions. Now, I say elder law, but anyone over 18 really needs to have these two documents in place, power of attorney and healthcare proxy, because if something happens to you, if you become disabled, you're an adult and your parents don't have authority to act for you unless these documents are in hand. So I often tell my clients, make sure your kids and your grandkids have these documents in place as well. And getting back to the elder law aspect of it, we do trust for people, so that if they become disabled, then their child, usually who's the trustee, will have authority to take over their affairs. So these are all things that a will does not accomplish, because a will doesn't go into effect until you die. Whereas if you do a trust, you have all of these benefits and they go into effect if you're alive and you become disabled. So that's how we handle it.
The telling mark is that somebody's going to be making the decisions, and it's whether or not it's going to be the state of New York, or whether it's going to be somebody that you actually love and trust is going to be making those decisions. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. You don't want to be put in the position where the court appoints a guardian to oversee your affairs, because generally they don't pick your family because they feel it's a conflict. The family spends the money on you. It comes out of their inheritance. So oftentimes they pick lawyers, as you know, and, nothing against having a lawyer in charge, but if you can have a family member in charge, why would you not go that way?
Yes. And so the one thing that I mean, there's a lot of things I like about your process. I like the fact that when you meet with somebody at your law firm and you sit down, you don't write them a check right then. They listen to you, they take down your information, they get to know you a little bit better, the therapy session, as you like to call it. And then they then find out what your goals are. And then how long does it typically take for your folks to put together some sort of plan?
So, I mean, when clients ask me that, I tell them as quickly or as long as you want or need. Generally, the first meeting that we have, at that meeting, as I said, we discuss their situation. I give them a copy of Michael's book, which you mentioned earlier, and I assign them some chapters to read. I give them some homework. I would like to give a quiz, but Michael won't let me give a quiz to our clients. So I don't do that. And then we generally, in a couple of weeks, we have a free follow-up appointment where at that point I answer their questions. And if they say, a lot of people say, listen, it sounds good, let's go ahead. That's when we do a proposal and we draft all the documents. And then maybe 2 weeks later, everything is done. Excuse me. And we go over the documents with them. I, go through paragraph by paragraph. I always say translating from legalese to English. And then they sign. And it can be done within several weeks if necessary. Sometimes people take a few more weeks just to make sure they understand every point.
And
but that's
so
okay
does the
too.
relationship end there?
No, it doesn't. It just starts actually. We monitor and maintain the plans. If there are changes in the law that affect the plan, we call people in and we update them. Now that honestly, that does not happen very often, but we have, record of every plan. We have it's all computerized, so we'll know if something happens and it's affected. We also, as I said before, we offer free advice so that you can call or email anytime. And every 3 years, we have a free review. So we do call you back in to look over everything. Because as you know, things change, right? Divorces, marriages, birth stats. And if there's a change that needs to be made, we keep on top of that. I can't tell you how many people have come in and say to me, I did a will 5 years ago and I called the lawyer because I had a question, but he died or she retired, right? And who has the will? The lawyer does. They keep the original generally, so that will encourage the family to go to them if there's a probate. We give our clients all the original documents, so they're not bound to us, but they know that we're here for them. Another thing we do is we have a breakfast every 2 years. And people say, well, you fed them dinner. What are you having a breakfast for? The purpose of the breakfast is to have the client and their family come and meet us. And we update them on the firm, what's going on. We're keeping the lines of communication open. And I have to tell you, when I do a signing with someone and they call me the first time with a question, 9 out of 10 times they say this, Suzanne, I'm sorry to bother you, and I say, listen, this is all part of the flat fees, and this is my job. You're not bothering me. By the 10th call, they're okay with it. But initially, it's a little foreign for people to realize that I'm accessible to them.
I really like the business model in that you guys send a newsletter too, don't you?
Yes, we have a weekly newsletter sent by email. It's called the Ettinger Elder Alert. Quite a catchy name. And, it's all different articles. Lately, we've been sending things about, the current situation, try to keep people informed, let them know that we're still working, we're still here for them. But it's a nice way to reach out to people.
Hey, listen, I wanted to talk to you about, you're growing up in Huntington. Can you tell us some of your first jobs?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, I was a hostess at a restaurant called Chi-Chi's, which is a Mexican restaurant, which is oh my gosh, I think I was 16 at that point. Yeah, and that was that restaurant is no longer there, but that was interesting. I had a series of hostess jobs. I was a hostess at the International House of Pancakes when I was 16 in an effort to save money because I went on a student exchange program in high school. So I'm very proud to say that I was able to save the money to pay for the
work
trip.
in an International House of Pancakes. That is quite the upper crust there, Suzanne.
Yeah, well, otherwise
did you get it? Did you get some free meals out of that? Very nice.
Of course. Nice. Yeah, definitely. What else did I do? I worked at the local mall and some of the retail stores there. And nothing that was too earth-shattering, just your typical teenage jobs. And then, of course, I went to college and law school, and with the time that I got out of law school, it was right after the stock market crashed. So it was like 92. So a lot of the kids who were going to business school decided to go to law school, so it made getting a job that much tougher. But I was lucky enough to start working in Queens at a Helmsley Spear building, doing property management, the legal aspect of that. So I got my feet wet in that and was doing landlord tenant after that, which was not a very great area of the law. And luckily, I ended up doing this, which is a fantastic area. I would recommend this to anyone considering practicing law.
When did you start doing estate planning work?
So I've only been doing this for a little over 5 years. I actually was home with my kids for several years when they were growing up. I was fortunate enough to be home with them. They're now 17 and 20. So they're, don't need me as much.
I've got around that age too. I understand your experience.
Yeah. So it's a big change, when they're little. As I said, I was fortunate enough to be there for them. now they're just my friends, which is great. They don't need me as much. So it's a wonderful thing.
When you were doing all these different types of work, how did that prepare you for estate planning?
Honestly, I have to tell you that being a mother and a wife and, a volunteer for the PTA and for all the other activities I was involved in, I think that prepared me more than any law or any job that I had. Because as I said, you need to be able to relate to people, and with the life experience that I have, I'm able to. I had, a dad who had dementia, who was a stubborn Italian guy who didn't want to do a trust, and I had to convince him to do it. So I know that aspect when people come in and say, my parents don't want to talk about doing a trust. They don't want us to know how much money they have. I can relate. I've been through a lot of things. So I think that is a good background in my case anyway.
So did you ever convince your dad to sit down and do it?
I did. Yeah. My brother and sister and I were able to convince him, and he was at the onset of his dementia at that point. And fortunately, we were able to put a plan in place, and he's since passed.
Sorry.
It's been 3 years, but no, thank you. But we were able to, preserve his assets. We were able to get him care while he was alive and in-home care. And when he passed, the settlement of the estate was a breeze, not because I'm a lawyer, but because he had a trust.
So I don't know if people really have an appreciation for what happens to property when somebody passes away without a trust. But, say, for example, somebody has a home, they kept it in their name, and they don't have a trust, and they have a bunch of property, and they die. Can the kids just, that are left, just assume ownership of the property?
No, they can't until there's a probate of the estate. Now, if they have a will, the will go through the courts and
that must be an easy process.
It's a breeze in New York, especially in New York.
Are you
the average
kidding me?
probate is a year. So no, a year. So if somebody has a house that has to go through probate, they can't even put it on the market or rent it, because they're not allowed to sign as the representative until the probate is completed, which appoints them executor. So, and think about this: if you have property in multiple states, you cannot start the probate in the second state until the New York probate is completed. So if your state has to wait a year before they can even start the next probate, that's going to be even longer.
Why wouldn't people do this? Why wouldn't they want to go to trustlaw.com and get this thing going? Explain to me why they wouldn't want to do this.
Well, I mean, in my opinion, in my experience, what I've seen, the people that don't want to do it don't really know about it. There are plenty of people out there that are not even aware what trust can do. I think that the perception is, if you hear the word trust, you think you have to be a billionaire, but these are not those kind of trusts. Most of our clients are middle class, lower, middle, or upper middle class. And if you have something that you need or want to preserve and to make it easier for your family, then a trust is the way to go. And certainly it's not for everyone, but it's getting the information out there. Once they're aware and they see it's a good fit for them, then most people say, yeah, it's a no-brainer.
And then they get this weekly update for free. They get the checkup for free. They get the breakfast. So nice.
They get the breakfast.
I mean, come on, you get this, and I'm sure the Italian side of you just basically makes it, listen, we need to get a little bit better food here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it works very well. I'm very happy to be able to do this type of work. And, with the way things are right now, people are frightened and they're nervous, but we're reaching out to our clients to let them know that we're here for them.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you're doing the same.
It's, I tell folks that, well, for sure for you guys don't ever want to be in court, right?
Yeah, we're never in court. No.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way you want to be. I mean, and in my business, we use the court system for what it's made for, which is basically to help people resolve disputes. But you're trying to get it so that people never have disputes.
That's exactly right. I mean, that was the impetus for forming the firm. Back 30 years ago, Michael said, I found out people could avoid court and make it easier to settle the estate. And I decided to go become, be trained as an elder law estate planning attorney.
So I'm
So
looking
it's
at
been
this,
working.
your website, trustlaw.com. And boy, that's a pretty good website name. I like that. Yeah, that's totally
Yeah,
a
that
good
was a good
get.
get, wasn't it?
Trustlaw.com. So I'm looking at it, and then I'm looking at this picture, and the listeners got to go to this website and check it out, because there's 24 people in the firm picture, and 22 of them are women.
People ask me about that all the time. And I tell them my husband is a very smart man, because he knows that women get the job done. We don't have we don't have the same ego problems. We're just workers. And in this kind of law, especially, there's got to be not that men are not compassionate. I mean, Joe, you're living proof. You're a compassionate guy, but I've had experience with male attorneys that we've hired who didn't have the same kind of repertoire or interaction with the clients. They were more cut and dry, and you really have to be emotionally available to these people, because you're talking about their families and their legacies and their lives. And it seems to work very well with
That's
a
great.
mainly female firm.
I typically will ask people, Suzanne, and I think you may have even told me during this interview already, but are there any defining moments in your personal life that were something that shaped the way that you think about things, or where you got to today?
Well, that's a good question. I really think, going back to when I was in fifth grade and I heard a lawyer come into our classroom and speak, and decided that's what I wanted to do. Just based on what this guy had said, I said, that sounds like that's for me. That was certainly a defining moment, and going through life. I mentioned my father earlier. That was a big factor in my deciding to go and become involved in this area of the law, because this was practicing this area. And I dealt with a local attorney he was wonderful. And I saw that the compassion and the knowledge and how it helped our family so much. And I said, this is for me. So, and dealing with my father was much older. He died when he was 89, and this is 3 years ago. So he was much older when he had me. So it was like another generation. So dealing with an elderly parent, and the fact that he had health issues and dementia, and my brother and sister and I really having to step up, it made me a little bit more.
Yeah, I hear you. So I have a 98-year-old father, and my sister Mary Jo lives with him, and it's such a wonderful situation for us. Very blessed. Just I try and talk to him on the telephone and find out what's going on, and it's absolutely this whole thing about elder law and estate planning. It hits home with everybody, because there's 100% mortality rate last time I checked.
That's true.
Hey, everybody, just don't get down. It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think shapes people too is that that relationship that they have with their grandparents.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
were you lucky enough to have your grandparents in your lives?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's an invaluable relationship. It's funny, whenever we got the chance to stay at grandma and grandpa's house, we would jump at it, because we were treated like queens and kings. It was a wonderful experience. And I'm so happy and lucky to have had that in my life.
What kind of things can you tell us that you learned from your grandparents?
Well, I didn't realize it when I was younger, but the fact, and I'm going back to the fact that they had their own business in a country where they were not born, where they did not speak the language. The fact that they had this business, and I remember as a child going in, and all of these women would come weekly to get their hair done, but it was like the place to be, and I'm so impressed by that now as a business owner, because it wasn't just cutting hair. It was running a business. It was employees. It was the facility. And, now in my life dealing with these things, I really give them so much credit for going ahead and doing this. Besides that, just being with them was fantastic. I was a little bit closer to my mom's parents just because we saw them more often. But both sides were just wonderful, wonderful grandparents, and just have left my brother and sister and I with wonderful memories. We were just reminiscing the other day, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that's great. And then what was the best food that they made?
Oh, let's see. My grandmother made everything she made was unbelievable. My Italian grandmother. I mean, really, when you talk about, Christmas Eve, that is still by far my favorite meal. I don't know, just dishes just kept coming out one after the other, but she made a killer lasagna. I have to say, it was like a 6-inch pan. It was really deep. And it was wonderful.
That's great. Well, listen, I wanted to thank you so much for spending some time with us. And, folks, if you're in New York, and you cover the state, don't you?
Yes, we do.
And so trustlaw.com, check out all the information. The thing that I like about it is the resources are unbelievable. You can get Michael Ettinger's book, Elder Law, and then there's tons of information that you can get from these folks. And again, you don't pay until you absolutely are happy with your plan. I thought one thing that was funny, the publication you guys have, Estate Planning for Pets, a Trust for Fluffy.
Listen, I have some people that come in, and that's the first question they ask me: how do I preserve money and have someone care for my pet if I pass? I had a gentleman who had 5 parrots, and you know how long parrots live.
Wow.
And that was his family, and so we had to craft a plan for him.
Wow. So yeah, and you look at all these publications. Just amazing, and then all the free follow up and the relationship. And if you have the chance to meet Suzanne and Michael, your life's going to be changed for the better. These people really do care about what they do. They're going to leave a legacy of this great business, and the folks that they represent are so lucky. And so, thank you so much for spending time with us, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Joe, and I really appreciate you talking to me. And I wish everyone out there who celebrates a happy Passover, and I wish you a happy Easter. And stay well.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the opening statement with Joe Shannon. You can find us on the internet at shannonlawgroup.com or telephone our office at 312-578-9501. Have a terrific day.